We now head into a 12-week primary runoff. Elections are about choices, and the choice in the Republican race for the U.S. Senate is crystal clear. I've worked for decades to build the Republican Party, both here in Texas and nationally. The final 2 years of President Trump's agenda hangs in the balance. I'm proud to have supported President Trump and worked with him to help him achieve his goals in the Congress, the neck of all of the Republican candidates, including the 5 new congressional seats that President Trump is depending on to win the majority in the House in the midterm elections, which is a challenge given the history. Well, good evening, everyone. The statewide early results are in, and we did very well, as expected, and we are on to the runoff. I want to start by thanking my family, without whose support and love I could not do what I get an opportunity to do, representing 32 million Texans in the United States Senate. I want to thank everybody who voted for me, and the way I view it, it's an indication of their trust in the service that I provided to this great state for many years now. To Congressman Wesley Hunt and his family, you ran a spirited race, and you have a bright future, and I wish you well. We now head into a 12-week primary runoff. Elections are about choices, and the choice in the Republican race for the U.S. Senate is crystal clear. I've worked for decades to build the Republican Party, both here in Texas and nationally. I refuse to allow a flawed, self-centered, and shameless candidate like Ken Paxton risk everything we've worked so hard to build over these many years. There is simply too much at stake in this midterm election for our state and for our country. The final 2 years of President Trump's agenda hangs in the balance. I'm proud to have supported President Trump and worked with him to help him achieve his goals in the Congress. If he's nominated, there's a high risk that Paxton would lose this Senate seat, taking 5 congressional seats down with him. And you don't have to take my word for it. In public polling in the last few months, U.S. Senate nominees are either tied with or beating Paxton if he were the nominee. Ken Paxton as the nominee would be a dead weight at the top of the ticket for Republicans running all across this great state. Over the next 12 weeks, Texas Republican primary voters will hear more about my record of delivering conservative victories in the United States Senate and learn more about Ken's indefensible personal behavior and failures in office. Just like the primary, we have a plan to win the runoff, and we are in the process of executing it. Judgment Day is coming for Ken Paxton. Thank you all. May God bless Texas, and may God continue to bless in the United States of America.
Take a few questions. Jim, you want to start with AP?
Senator, typically a runoff can be a problem spot for an incumbent, and you've got enough stars. Do you feel like, what do you feel like you need to do to motivate your voters versus Ken Paxton's voters?
Well, fortunately, I've had the experience of winning a runoff previously when I was Attorney General. I won a contested runoff for the Republican nomination then. Obviously, we need to encourage as many people as possible who voted in the primary to come back on May the 26th. Fortunately, Texas has an early voting period, which will allow anybody and everybody who wants to vote an opportunity to cast their ballot early. If they don't do it, then they can do it on May the 26th. I think there'll probably be, at last count, maybe as many as 5 races on the ballot, which will make it much more likely we'll see a robust turnout of voters then. But as I said, and as I think we've demonstrated, there's simply just too much at stake for Texas voters to stay home. And I don't expect them to stay home. I expect a robust turnout. We'll certainly be encouraging that.
Teresa,
Senator Cornyn, how how did we get here? How is it that in your run for a 5th term, you are facing your first runoff as a Senate candidate?
How did we get here?
Yeah, what is it about Ken Paxton that's driven you to this point?
Well, I like to think, well, first of all, I got a great team. My family, I mentioned, without whose love and support I couldn't do this. But I simply could not in good conscience let someone like Ken Paxton waltz into the Senate as the Senate nominee for the Republican Party for the reasons I mentioned. I think he'll be an albatross around the neck of all of the Republican candidates, including the 5 new congressional seats that President Trump is depending on to win the majority in the House in the midterm elections, which is a challenge given the history. So we will continue to do what we've done and talk about my record of support for the president and his policies and my record of legislative accomplishments. And I would say that, as I've said before, that character is on the ballot. Ken Paxton doesn't believe that that matters. He believes that all of his misbehavior and his scandals are sort of baked in the cake, and he's won a couple of elections since much of that has come out. But there's much more that will come out in the runoff, and which will demonstrate his unfitness for office and his liability the potential liability of him being the nominee in November. I won by 10 points in 2020, and I think I can help down ballot, and I can help President Trump during the remaining 2 years of his term of office after this election.
Last one right here.
Yeah, so Senator, the president has expressed support for you and also for Ken Paxton, did not endorse anyone in this primary. Do you expect that to change now that it's gone to a runoff, and do you expect it to be you?
There's only one person on the planet who knows what President Trump's going to do, and that's him. Certainly, I talk to the president on a regular basis. He's got a great team around him of real professionals, Susie Wiles, Chris LaCivita, Tony Fabrizio, just to name a few. And he understands what's at stake. But I understand also why in a contested primary with 3 of us, he didn't want to have to choose between us and disappoint some of his own base of support. And I think he wanted to see me earn this nomination, as we are well on the path to doing, before he made any kind of decision. But when or if he makes a decision and to get involved in the race is entirely up to him.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Subscribe to One India and never miss an update. Download the One India app now.